Welcome to the February 13th, 2024 City Council meeting. Please stand for the invocation by Vice Mayor Feraldi, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in a brief moment of silence, and then I will give an invocation. Lord, thank you for the opportunity to serve this city. Be with us this evening. Give us wisdom and the ability to conduct the business on behalf of your people. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's City Council agenda is divided into three sections: consent agenda, public hearing, and general business. First section is consent agenda. This section includes routine items, and all items may be approved by one vote. May I have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Oh,
Madam Mayor?
yes.
Councilmember Dolan had asked me to pull the November 28th meeting minutes. So the 2023 minutes would consist of all of those, but the November 28th meeting.
Okay, so do we want to vote on items 1 and 2 separately?
You
or?
could do it as an amended.
Okay,
and
so
vote on
as
all
amended.
three.
Okay, so vote on all three as amended, minus the date that Councilwoman Dolan removed. Is that okay? Right.
So that was her motion, so. What do you want to do?
Yes.
So you want to make the motion?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. And then we have to do a voice vote, is that correct?
Yes, so call for the voice vote.
Okay.
Councilmember Dolan?
Yes.
Councilmember Hebbelson?
Aye.
Councilmember Mischens?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilder?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Aye.
Mayor Reed?
Aye.
The motion passes.
The next section is public hearing. This section includes all public hearings as required by law or as council may direct. Staff will make a presentation. Comments will then be solicited from the public. An individual speaker shall have 3 minutes to speak. If the speaker represents a group, the speaker shall have 5 minutes. A speaker representing a group shall identify the group at the beginning of his or her remarks, and a group shall have only one spokesperson. Each speaker shall clearly state his or her name and locality of residence. Upon the conclusion of public comments, the public hearing will be closed and the matter referred to council for deliberation.
Sorry, I was directing traffic for you while you're reading.
Just one quick question. I think she had the consent agenda, one item pulled because you weren't there.
Right. No. Because there was something.
To be affixed. Gotcha.
Incorrect about.
Oh,
the
gotcha.
minutes.
Okay,
I'm
sorry about
I'm
that. That
sorry.
was my fault. I thought you wanted something pulled and we'd vote on that separately.
No,
Sorry.
yeah.
Nope.
Sorry.
My problem. I'm sorry.
Okay. Consideration of adopting resolution appealing Resolution R-2359 adopted by City Council on June 13th, 2023, and approving the Virginia Department of Health Drinking Water State Revolving Fund fiscal year 2022 bipartisan infrastructure law lead service line inventory funding. Staff will provide a brief summary of the request. Mr. Tim Mitchell.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. This item came before you at the last work session as a business item briefing. And so I won't go into a lot of detail, but the resolution that we're requesting to be adopted relates to funding for the lead service line inventory. This is a federally mandated program where we have to go out and actually inventory all the water services, both public and private, and submit that to the health department by October 16th of this year. And we estimate the program cost to be somewhere between $1.4 and $1.5 million. Last year, we were awarded an amount from the Virginia Department of Health for bipartisan infrastructure law funding. Council approved that funding back in June of last year. We're asking for that to be repealed because they've revised their offer letter, and the new offer includes up to a total offer of up to $1.25 million. $475,000 of that is in principal forgiveness, and $775,000 of that is a 20-year loan at a 1% interest rate. So we're asking for the issuance not to exceed $1 million in principal forgiveness or principal repayment and revenue bonds to the Virginia Resource Authority. This would enable us to fund this first phase of the inventory and enter into a funding agreement with the Virginia Resource Authority for a grant to the city in the form of principal forgiveness of $475,000. And also authorize the city manager, deputy city manager, and chief financial officer to execute the appropriate documents. And at the conclusion of the public hearing, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Any voicemails from citizens?
There are none.
Okay, public hearing is now closed and the matter rests with council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Or do you want to speak to your motion? Sorry.
We're getting federal monies for this, right?
So the $475,000 in principal forgiveness is through the bipartisan infrastructure law funding. So we have to do this program regardless of where the funding comes from. This is the lowest cost funding that we can secure at this point because we have the principal forgiveness in addition to the loan at 1% interest rate for 20 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Wilder?
Yes, but we had approved this last year, but they just modified the agreement or the arrangement for the return of the funds for the.
I'm sorry, repeat
So-
that, please.
I'm sorry, I thought of so much stuff. I apologize. So we approved this last year, and now they just modified what we're receiving back.
Right, so what you approved last year was for a lesser amount of principal forgiveness and a lower loan amount and a shorter repayment period. It was for a 10-year repayment period versus a 20. So the health department revised their offer to increase it to the current amount in the resolution. So this would give us additional funding to help complete the program that we needed to complete.
Thank you. No other questions?
Councilman Helgeson?
So that's why part of this is repealing last year's.
Correct.
Because the new one went from 10 years to 20 years. It took the amount, increased it from $1 million to 1.25, and there's something to that effect. And then it also, the principal forgiveness came back a little bit better.
Correct.
And these are lead lines that are, need to be replaced regardless, and this is a good thing.
So
some of them should
replacing
be.
lead service lines is definitely a good thing. The requirement that this will fund is the inventory, so actually going out and determining what the services are. And this won't identify every service in the city, well, that'll be an ongoing process, but this funds that first phase of identifying what the service line materials are on the city side and on the customer side. So then that kind of dictates the next steps going forward in compliance with the regulation.
And with regarding the repayment amount of like the 750,000 or how much ever about that is, at 1% for 20 years, obviously we're not going to be paying any of that sooner. We're going to be just paying it all, paying the 1%, right?
Correct.
I mean,
I mean, it'll be the principal and the interest rate is 1%.
Yes.
So we'll be paying the principal.
So we're going to pay that off as long, delay it as long as we can.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's correct. And if we didn't use this funding, then we'd have to issue bonds or whatever to fund the program, which would be higher.
Glad they increased it, that's good.
Anyone else? Councilman Missions?
I just appreciate your work on this and finding a creative solution to reduce the burden over time, make it more manageable on our citizens. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we'll go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Dolan? Councilmember Hubbardson?
Aye.
Councilmember Missions?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilder?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Nope.
Mayor Reed?
Aye.
The motion passes 6-1.
Okay. The next section is general business. This section includes general items of new business. The second reading, consideration of adopting Resolution R-24-012, amending the fiscal year 2024 adopted schools operating budget and appropriating $15,000 from the City of Lynchburg's general fund reserve for contingencies to instruction with the fiscal year 2024 adopted schools operating budget. This item was voted on by council during our January 23rd City Council meeting and is a second reading. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Vice Mayor Frawley? Councilman Taylor? Okay. Any discussion? Councilman Hugginson?
Last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, when it came up on, just out of the blue at Finance Committee, and then brought to council, and was stated that this resolution was vetted, I brought up the fact that, as we're seeing right before us, the resolution, where we've already allocated $1.6 million for the contingency reserve for the schools, as opposed to taking out of the reserve for contingencies, which is the emergency fund. Now, I think last time it was stated that, oh, if it isn't spent on these kind of things, it'll be spent later. The reality is how the reserve for contingency fund actually works is if it's not spent, we don't have to ask for more taxes to fill it back up. It's already full. It's like if your gas tank is on empty, you have to pay more money to fill it up. If your gas tank is full, we don't have to pay more money to fill it up. I'd like to see us leaving our gas tank full, leaving the reserve for contingencies full, especially when it's kind of out of the blue. So I'll be voting against this, and I recognize it may be a good thing. It could easily been done in a vastly different way by the reserve that was already at the school system, rather than taking and emptying out our gas tank. So I'll be voting against it.
Councilman Dolan?
I voted for this last go-around, and I'll vote for it again. However, I feel it's probably one of the only votes I've ever made that I had really regretted making, and for this reason, I think it sets a precedent. I think I believe in what these kids are doing, but I really think that this sets a bad precedent for. There are a lot of neighborhoods in our city that can't raise the resources and the money that they need to do programs like this with their students, and I think it opens us up to have even private schools maybe come to us because they're taxpayers also. So I think that I will support this, but it will be the last vote of this nature that I would ever say yes to.
Anyone else? Councilman Mischins?
You know, I'm sitting here looking at this resolution and I heard what Councilman Dolan had to say, or what Councilmember Helgeson had to say. And, you know, in order to be prudent with this, I think the only way that I could support it in this particular instance would be if we change this to take it from the contingency reserves in the school budget categorically to kind of break that precedent of these groups or neighborhoods or whatever from the community coming to the city asking it to come take it out of the city coffers for this. So with that, I'm going to be offering a substitute motion that we change this to actually taking it from the contingency reserves in the classification budget from city schools and moving it to instruction rather than taking it from the city's reserve for contingency. So I'm offering that as a substitute motion.
It's a point of parliamentary inquiry, if I may. Mr. Since this is the second reading, still anything is fair game?
Yes, I think that's correct. So the first one was an introduction. Council had an opportunity to talk through it, state their position, and vote on the position. This is the time for the consideration of an adoption. Certainly, council, if it wanted to entertain substitute motions, it could.
Okay, then I'll second it.
So speaking of the substitute motion, I just think it makes sense. I think if we're going to do this, obviously I feel like the will of the majority is for this to happen at this time, for this funding to go forward. We should not set that precedent that people are coming, these groups, just like Councilman Dolan said, to set that precedent that they're coming to get it from the city coffers. In this particular instance, this is a Lynchburg City School group, a Lynchburg City School program. We've got $1.6 million and some change dollars set aside for reserve funding for Lynchburg City Schools. So let's go ahead and use that funding source as a contingency reserve and put it into instruction, which was the way the budget was designed to work. That's why I'm offering this substitute motion.
Councilman Helgeson? Any further discussion or thoughts? Okay, let's go ahead and vote on the substitute motion, which would be to, I guess, would you just restate that, Councilman Missions, your motion?
So the substitute motion would be to change the language where the $15,000, instead of coming for the reserve for contingencies from the city of Lynchburg, that we would actually recategorize the funding from contingency reserves, so take 15,000 out of that and move it into instruction to be able to foot the bill and cover the ask.
And Madam Mayor, just so our record is clear, I'm not understanding it to be a motion to adopt, but just to revise the language of the resolution for consideration immediately after.
So this is to make, I believe, is to make this, so the substitute motion, we're first voting on it to make it the main motion, then we vote on the adoption. Yes.
And if I understand correctly, we could still adopt this tonight,
No.
right? Or would we?
Yes, I think you
We could
could.
adopt it
Require
tonight.
2 votes. Just this vote.
All right, go ahead and call the vote, please.
Councilmember Dolan? No. Councilmember Helgeson?
Aye.
Councilmember Mischins?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilder?
No.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Nope.
And Mayor Reed?
No. Did you call on Councilman Dolan? Oh, okay.
Councilmember Dolan? You said no, yes.
She voted first.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
The motion passes. No, I'm sorry. The motion fails, 3-4.
Okay, so we're back to the main motion. So we will now cast our vote for the main motion, please.
Councilmember Dolan? Aye. Councilmember Helgeson?
No.
Councilmember Mischins?
No.
Councilmember Taylor?
Nope.
Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Feraldi?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
The motion passes 4-3.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be held on February 27th, 2024 at 4 p.m. in council chambers.